Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever in the world you are today. So it is March 22nd. The Fed decided to go up another 25 basis points. So we are at 2007 historic levels. The markets still aren't sure what they want to do. So they've kind of remained neutral. I think we'll see a majority of that most likely come out tomorrow. But, there is, without a doubt, turmoil in the larger capital markets. And so we can't even say it's a crypto problem anymore. That being said, as we are clearly in a bear, and there's no one thinking a bull is going to happen anytime soon. Although I'm sure there's a few. I think somebody just said Bitcoin was going to hit $1 million in the next 90 days, and placed $1 million bet on it happening. So I look forward to him winning that bet, but I'm going to go ahead and I would probably bet against that one. That being said, where we've seen just an amazing amount of intake is in kind of the builders, the developers, and really the larger infrastructure plays behind what Web3's promises have been. When you take away all the hype, when you take away all the FOMO, suddenly now all of the innovators have some space and time and room to really think about, did we do things right over the last bull? What can we do better? How do we gain better consumer adoption? And so when we think about crypto, when we think about blockchain, I constantly am asked by, is it real? How does it work? How can it, in any way, shape, or form help me in my real life? And so today is just this amazing conversation that we're going to have with Valerie from the Helium Foundation. And I'm really excited to kind of have this talk because one thing that's all for certain is that when Wi-Fi came into our lives and when kind of wireless internet, became a thing, it transformed the world. And I remember the first, time that I could have a laptop that wasn't wired in, and just what a freeing feeling that is. And now we get into the fact that, some have mobile and you can travel a lot bit, but at the end of the day, there's still a lot of gaps to be, flushed out in that network. It's still very expensive. It's still very slow, and it's not a perfect system by any means. So that being said, Valerie, thank you so much for taking the time today, and would love to hear a little bit of your background before we dive into Helium.
Yeah, awesome, Jay. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, so I'll go over myself. So I'm Valerie Spina. I am from the Helium Foundation. I'm there today working on sort of ops and governance. Those are my kind of two big focuses. But I come from a background in strategic transformations, in traditional finance and in mortgage finance at Freddie Mac. And we worked at, kind of enterprise-wide, tech transformations there. And then I really moved into the crypto and blockchain space kind of immediately from that. It was something we were looking at kind of from traditional finance, just, what is crypto? How might this impact us? And I had an interesting involvement in crypto as a teenager, which was, just kind of messing around on the internet. No one knew what this was. And we were just teenagers exploring the internet. And, but I came back to it again as a later professional, and took a role as a blockchain researcher at a really interesting nonprofit in Denver, Colorado called ICAST. It was the International Center for Appropriate and Sustainable Technology. And they had a blockchain researcher position open. I was like, let's do it. Let's go. They did green energy retrofits for multifamily affordable housing units, which I just loved that mission. I've always been really mission oriented in my work. Kind of a reason I loved Freddie Mac. I'm sort of a big believer in kind of sustainable and social enterprises. And so I moved into this one. And then I was there for about a year, sort of working as a consultant and as an internal researcher, and tried to sell the company on Helium, because when that company went into multifamily affordable housing units, they might have gone into a property that hadn't been touched for 50 years, or probably wouldn't be touched again for another 50 years, just because, multifamily doesn't get renovated often. It just doesn't have the money for it. It doesn't have the resources. It might be in a HUD backlog, and the federal government can't get to it. And so this kind of organization, and there's only two that I know of in the U.S. that do these retrofits. This organization was able to get into multifamily affordable housing. So they would go in, they would put kind of new green energy technology. They would put new insulation. They might put, LED lights in, kind of everything from, small to really big changes. And so Helium was such an awesome product because you could go into this property and you could, start to make it smart home enabled. And again, if you're not going to go into a property for 50 years, it kind of makes sense to, just put as much infrastructure as you could. And Helium at the time was, $50 a token. It was, really great. It was an easier sell for me as a kind of internal researcher. And so that's what happened, but really fell in love with the project from there, and also was sort of making my way consulting in some other ways for kind of crypto blockchain startups, and finally found myself actually at the Helium Foundation, and I pinched myself. I couldn't believe that I got here. So yeah,
that's amazing, and it's a common theme and thread we're seeing more and more often now. With the guests on this program, where, for a long time in the, pre-bull and bull cycle of, kind of 18, 19, 20, 21, there was a ton of projects that had amazing valuations, but they had no consumers. They had no go-to-market strategy. They had no real, like, what value we're going to provide in this world other than increasing our market cap and providing liquidity to a bunch of other, random shitcoins around the blockchain. And listen, we all play the games and we're learning alongside. But the projects that are still here, the projects that are still receiving funding, adoption, and really are innovating very highly are the ones that have here's how we're going to make the world better.
totally.
Here's how we're going to help improve people's lives. And so I really, like I said, I'm excited to kind of really understand a little bit more behind the scenes of what you and the Helium Foundation are doing, because it's a global project, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. We're all over the world. I think we're in more than 196 countries today.
That's amazing. So let's just dive right into it. And so, I think a lot of us know Helium. We've understood, we've played with it. We've probably a lot of our listeners, maybe even have the machines. But just give us that from the bottom up, overview of what Helium is doing and what your mission is.
Yeah. So Helium is building a global decentralized wireless network, and they're doing that by, and they did that originally by rolling out what's called a LoRaWAN network. It's a long range, low power network. This is part of kind of a LoRa networking protocol, which is a standard kind of in the industry as a networking protocol. And so, it's made for IoT devices. So, it's not a network for your computers and it's not a network for your phones, but it's a network for, devices that sort of don't need to send data, don't need a high bandwidth to send data. And it doesn't need to send data, often or frequently, and doesn't need to send large packet sizes. So this is made for sensors. So this might be, sensors on street lights, or sensors in remote locations, or sensors for agriculture and soil monitoring. And so, we rolled out this kind of global decentralized wireless network. At first, Helium Inc. was a company that was building its own devices, and you would buy this piece of hardware and you would install it in your home. And since then, though, we actually don't produce any more hardware. And now we're an open network that you get certified with us, and you can, as a manufacturer, produce your own hardware. And that is, you're allowed to sell to the network.
Very, very smart on not building your own hardware. That's a net zero sum game. With some of the established, Web 1 and 2 players that have just been doing this for decades and decades. So, love that. So you guys have evolved. You really did start with the Internet of Things, of like, hey, we want to help this connectivity. How's that mission kind of shifted nowadays?
Yeah, so that shifted about a year ago to be what we're calling a network of networks model. So we really had a lot of success. I mean, we have almost 1 million hotspots on the network today, which is incredible. That was, 2019 had almost no hotspots on the network to, fast forward to 2023, and we have almost 1 million onboarded to the network today. So,
wow.
And so it was such a good growth, and really the kind of crypto incentive model had such a success with the rollout of the LoRaWAN network that we applied that to a 5G CBRS network. So it's a 5G Citizens Broadband Radio Service network, which means that it's kind of an open protocol for people to roll 5G coverage out with. It still is FCC regulated, but that is sort of the other network that's now part of the Helium ecosystem. And so, we have this network of networks, LoRaWAN and 5G.
Yeah, and these are, and I think that what's really interesting is, number one, I'm you're not the first one to try to do a network like this. In fact, the major telecoms are most likely your competition. AT&T has been doing this for a while. You say, hey, I'd like my new modem for my residence, and they go, hey, we're just putting this extra box here. It's not going to affect anything, but it's broadcasting exactly those same types of signals. But there's a big difference between when the telecom does it and when one of us does it, and I'd love to kind of expand on what that difference is.
Yeah, totally. And that's like why we're all here. That's like why people love the Helium Network. That's why I'm here. That's why the Helium Foundation is here, is because we want to be, a people owned and operated network that, the thing that you pay into as a customer is something that you also own, something that you have participation in, something that you can help make changes to. And so, yeah, that's the biggest difference, I think, from my perspective, at least, of, how we're different than these big telcos, is that, yeah, we're people owned and operated. And I think what that also means too is like we can get the types of last mile deployments that big telcos can't and haven't, because it's too high of a cost. And they have the chicken and egg problem of, well, who's going to pay for this? Well, we could pay for it, but, we can't get money until we do that, but we can't get money until we know we have customers. Like, they just have this kind of chicken and egg problem of cost. And so we can sort of solve that problem by having, people roll this out. And then, of course, the foundation now works on making sure that people are like really utilizing this network.
Yeah, and I remember last year when the 5Gs started rolling out, I was like, "Oh, that's great!" I own a bunch of commercial buildings. I said, "This makes perfect sense to me." You guys were sold out, and I still don't think you guys have stock, and that's been probably why you shifted away from you guys making your own to partner with others, because it was insanely popular for people around the world that have dealt with this problem and know people, or live in areas that a telecom would never think, this is something I need. And they go, no, I live in rural Africa. I live in rural Missouri. It doesn't matter. There's people that are around me all the time, and they suddenly see there's some very like profitable hotspots in the middle of nowhere that I've seen from some stats.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there definitely are. Yeah, I have a few out in the middle of nowhere too. Yeah.
So talk about the governance side of things, because I think that's the most important part. We're not, you guys do have a foundation, and obviously there's people to call. You guys are working on this project day in and day out, but you have this amazing governance, and so I think that's especially with what you do. Talk through a little bit about how that was formed, the way it operates today, and a little bit of the roadmap of where it's going in the future, because that's one of the biggest, most exciting things of Web3 is that online governance that
yeah. I think that's the most exciting part too, which is why I'm super excited to work on this at the foundation. So, and the foundation, just as a point too, our whole mission is to help steward the Helium Network, but also steward the decentralized wireless industry as well. So, we do a lot, I think, to just do both of those things. But kind of the primary things we also do is like we give out grants, like we want more open source development for, again, the Helium Network, but also the decentralized wireless industry at large. And hopefully we can provide the education needed for that. And again, kind of be a big player in stewarding governance and also kind of, affecting governance how we can. So what is Helium governance? So today we have Helium governance is defined by the HIP, or the Helium Improvement Proposal. That's not a new thing. That is taken from the original BIP, the Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, and then kind of many crypto projects use that as well. The future of governance is going to be on Solana. So what we get when we move to governance is finally the implementation of what's called HIP 51 to 53. These were Helium Improvement Proposals that were passed probably about a year ago at this point. You can find that in the Helium repository. Again, all of our governance is open, so you can go and you can view that. You can comment. You can help make edits to HIPs. We really want people to be as involved as they can be in governance. So HIP 51 and 53 set out that we would get Helium sub-DAOs, that we would get new network tokens. This was the network of networks model. Helium sub-DAOs, Helium tokens, or new tokens, the IoT token and mobile token, which would represent both these new kind of, this would represent the network of networks model. And then that we would get weighted voting. And then, of course, we had a HIP later that was HIP 70 that said, okay, now we're going to do all of that on the Solana network. And we need a new L1 actually to enable all of that, because we really weren't going to be able to do that on the current Helium blockchain.
So that's really interesting. So you actually allowed your governance and your users to select which chain you were going to use, which generally, I say the central team, the foundation, should be able to make those day-to-day changes. But that's interesting that you allowed that level of governance.
Yeah, this was a proposal by Helium Core developers. But yeah, this was a proposal by the Helium Core developers, which are developers kind of spread out over the ecosystem. They're at different companies. We have community developers, and they kind of came together and they proposed the new L1. And yeah, then of course the Helium community voted on it. It was I believe it was the most votes any improvement proposal ever had. And so that's how we decided that.
I can only imagine it was probably a very cordial form conversation, and not a single negative thing was ever said, right?
No, yeah, not exactly. Not exactly. I think that's as expected, though, that, any L1 selection would be, really just contentious. It's a big decision. Yeah.
It doesn't matter which one you pick. Even if you say we're chain agnostic, we're on all of them. There's always someone that's upset. It's
totally.
L1s is a little bit of a religion. We need to get away from that. I do believe it's chain of chains, same as you're saying, network of networks. It's all about interoperability. What can you connect to, not what are you siloing off from the world. And so I absolutely endorse Solana as an amazing network that is high speed, low cost. And if your goal is to move a lot more tokens around and kind of reward on a more regular basis and do some more advanced things, they can absolutely be done on Ethereum or any L2 there. It just costs more and it's a little tough right now with the rate of development over there compared to where Solana is just still has that centralized team and they're moving at a much faster innovation pace.
Totally. And we're really excited to move to the Solana network in general. We're going to get, like you just said, lower transactions, way faster speeds, kind of a whole network of developers and a growing network of Rust developers. We have the Solana Foundation, Solana Labs, who are like real powerhouses to do exactly what you just said, kind of grow that network and grow that ecosystem. There's DeFi, there's NFTs. We had no smart contract capabilities on the Helium L1 before that. So just that alone is going to be really huge for us, just the composability of everything you get on the Solana network. And I think it's a really interesting conversation because we do a lot of consulting at yWhales under our solutions group. And there's so many times people bring their project to us and they go, and I need my own chain. And before even hearing, the pitch, I'm like 99% chance you don't need your own chain. And I think this is a really good one. You guys had the experience, you built it out, you ran it. The difference is that the world has evolved quite a bit since you probably launched your, conceptualized and launched your L1, to where the bridges are getting better, the protocols are getting faster and cheaper. And it ends up being, this is not a Web 2 solution. You have to maintain lots of nodes. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into this, and you guys already have a very large infrastructure play. So you just divide and conquer and say, where's my energy and capital best spent? And you guys are not a chain. You guys are a Wi-Fi and cellular provider, and IoT provider. Exactly. And that was part of the re-architecture of HIP 70 too, which one kind of proposed Solana, but also did a massive re-architecture between, hey, we are a wireless network and we need the reliability of a wireless network so that people can actually roam and use us and be sure that, the reliability of the network is not dependent on a blockchain. And so what HIP 70 actually did too was sort of decouple the IoT and wireless network side from the blockchain. And so we sort of simplified what the chain would do for us, which is now kind of payments, settlement, wallet accounting, like really basic kind of blockchain functions. And then now we have everything else that's really related to the wireless network, and IoT kind of data transfer, off-chain. We have that in off-chain oracles. And so we just simplified our needs as well.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So let's dive right back over into kind of the infrastructure you guys have built and you're continuing to grow, which is, wireless in various forms, 5G, long range, standard old Wi-Fi as well. So what does that look like today? And you said you've got over 1 million hotspots, which is a very large network at this point. But what does it look like if someone wanted to only be on Helium? Is that something they can do in certain cities? Do you guys have more kind of clustering, or how's the rollout going?
Yeah, certain cities have full coverage today, or just about full coverage today. So San Francisco has incredible coverage. New York has incredible coverage. Lisbon has awesome coverage. We have a lot of network partners that have deployed, over 500 hotspots in Lisbon alone. What are some other ones? Yeah, those are the three major cities off the top of my head that I've also visited and seen the coverage for myself, which is great. That's sort of another thing that you can do on the Helium network is you can map this coverage. So we have a whole network of community members that are, out there actually mapping the coverage, and they have these devices that they've built themselves, and they can see kind of when they're connected to a hotspot to confirm that coverage is actually in the place that it says it is. So, and we're actually looking to expand that sort of mapping exercise as well, so that more people, and hopefully you could do it on your phones at some point too, but that, you'll be able to just kind of map where the coverage is and confirm that folks have coverage. Yeah. So if you wanted to roam on the Helium network today, realistically, you probably wouldn't have coverage all the time. Like there's still plenty of deployments to happen in Helium. So plenty of hotspots to deploy, plenty of opportunities for hotspots to exist in. Like we definitely want to continue to increase deployment of hotspots. But if you can't roam kind of individually, you can do what's called partnering with a roaming partner. And I believe we have 4 roaming partners on the Helium network today. So say you're onboarding like 100 or so, kind of an enterprise level amount of, sensors to the Helium network. Mm-hmm. With a roaming partner, they'll be able to, validate that when you can't roam on the Helium network, you'll still have coverage because they have, kind of backup networks built into their roaming infrastructure. So, yeah.
So walk me through. Let's start from a user's perspective, and then I'd like to have kind of a node operator's perspective as well. So for a user, they see a Wi-Fi network that I guess somehow signifies Helium. Just walk me through as if I've never used it before.
If you've never used the Helium network before, yeah. So if you've never used the Helium network before and you're a sensor deployer, that's the question.
Yeah. The question is, I'm going to New York, and I would like to use Helium for cellular and for Wi-Fi.
Okay.
What does that look like? What do I got to do?
The cellular one is maybe more interesting. So if you go to like New York today and you want to roam on the Helium 5G network, first of all, you can't full time, but you can test the network. Which I could actually probably give you a Helium eSIM if you would like to try that out. And you can test the Helium 5G network. So, but what you would do eventually is, you'll have your cell phone, and you have to make sure your phone's like unlocked. But you would install a Helium eSIM. And so you'll be able to see kind of at the top, where you have your regular, T-Mobile or AT&T coverage. You'll also see, another one that's Helium. And you'll just have the same kind of, bar view and whatnot, the same kind of UI that you expect for your current service provider. You'll just see that for Helium. And when you're on the Helium network, you'll be able to roam on the Helium 5G network. And then when you're not, you'll likely be back on your own kind of service. And you'll be able to switch between the service providers based on your eSIM. But you'll install it like an eSIM, which is like a pretty easy user experience on your mobile phone today.
Yeah, no, I actually I run dual SIMs on my iPhone 14, and it's very easy. I swap when I go to different countries. You can literally download. It's the weirdest.
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
right? You can download an eSIM and just run a native SIM when you're running there, and that's amazing what it is, because I was unsure how the 5G would work, but that also switching back over to kind of being a node operator. If you run a remote ranch, if you run if you're somewhere, you could almost be in the middle of the ocean. If you've got a Starlink and an interconnection, you can make a 5G network anywhere you want to be. Is that correct?
I'm not totally sure how you would do it from Starlink, from a satellite connection. I don't totally know if you could do that, but you do have to have, like, to install the 5G network, you do have to have like a FCC certified, 5G radio, and it has to be
Yeah.
installed to, very kind of specific specifications. You have to have someone come out and look at it. You need to have like a CBRS, certified deployer,
Okay.
kind of review your deployment. So the installing 5G is definitely not as easy as installing the Helium LoRaWAN network, but the Helium LoRaWAN network is still, a plug and play device. It's a plug and play device. You put it in your home, you set the antenna up, and you're supplying, a public LoRaWAN network. So that one still is easy, but the 5G one's
Yeah, but
not as much.
theoretically, let's just say that the backhaul is just an internet connection. So as long as you
Yes.
have, so theoretically, yes, if you've got a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and you have no cell coverage, or you have very minimal cell coverage, and you say, I just need to use this for myself so I can have a phone, it works in a lot of ways. So that's really interesting. So for the node operators that want to do either the long range or they want to do the 5G, what's that look like on the compensation side? I mean, some of those radios are not cheap. Some of them are very hard to get a hold of. So what does that look like to be an operator, and walk through that process of getting the radio up and running and then running it and profiting over the years?
Yeah, so the 5G network has its own token. It's the mobile token. Today, I believe that you can get the 5G radios from Bobcat or Freedom Fi. Freedom Fi is a company under what's now Nova Labs. Nova Labs are the original kind of creators of Helium Network. And of course, they're really very focused on mobile deployments and 5G CBRS deployments and being actually a service provider. So they're going to be Helium Mobile, the kind of service provider on the Helium network. So today, I really don't know the rewards. I can't tell you the rewards just because it depends so much on where your hotspot is. What surface area it's covering, and any obstructions kind of in that surface area. I'm really simplifying it down. But we have a kind of proof of coverage algorithm that determines the kind of strength and the quality of your connection on the 5G network, and then you're rewarded based on that. There's a 5G, I can talk about the governance side as well. There's a sort of 5G mobile proof of coverage working group that's ongoing to sort of improve the status of rewards for the 5G network. And so today, I think, if you have a deployment up, I know that you're mining from a pre-mine of those tokens, and then going forward, there's going to be a way more kind of clear way to have rewards be dispersed over time.
Yeah, and listen, innovation cycles are going to happen, especially when you're going from the centralized, traditional, phone services and teleservices to now this entirely decentralized group of random individuals. And I say random, meaning that most of them don't know each other. You guys, have governance that is, global. So I think it's amazing to see, what the power of humans are when you put their mind to it and say, this is a base technology. You guys didn't invent 5G. You're just trying to help, add more 5G into some areas. And I think that's great. Listen, even T-Mobile or AT&T or any of these other ones don't have perfect coverage. Nobody does. But the thought is that, the more of these devices you can roll out, especially in certain areas, that's a huge win for a lot of people. And again, now understanding that it's eSIM compatible to get the 5G, that opens up so many possibilities for places that are not being taken care of by traditional 5G providers. And I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about other places in the world.
For sure. And I think it's important to note too that there's sort of two ways that you will always be able to get rewarded in the Helium network by deploying on either the LoRaWAN side or the 5G side. And that's from one, the deployment itself, and you get rewarded through what's called proof of coverage. And that's the, hey, you get rewarded for just having your hotspot up and providing coverage to the network. The other way is by network usage, which we think, and I really know is the long-term way that you're going to get rewarded by the network. That's from people using the network. So that's from folks actually running the eSIM on their phone and, paying to use the Helium network and then connecting to your 5G radio when they do that, and you get rewarded from that. Same with the LoRa network. When you have some deployment and you'll have someone transferring data over the network, that's how your hotspot gets rewarded and how you get rewarded.
That's awesome. So, talk about a little bit of your roadmap. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that are going on. You guys learned a lot during this last bull cycle. You're innovating quite a bit now during the bear. What's kind of the big items that are on your guys's horizon here to start rolling out?
Yeah, so the first one is definitely the Solana migration. That's like our full faith and focus right now is migrating our L1 to Solana, and yeah, just getting all of our users kind of aware of Solana on, using the Solana network as well. And I think kind of sitting into that, making sure we're not, our developer team is not firefighting anymore once we're on the Solana network. After that, it's continuing to improve the proof of coverage algorithm for the IoT network and for the mobile network. And so again, we just rolled out 2 community-based working groups to do that. This is the governance side of that. And so we have 16 members from the community working on both of those groups. And they're going to be rolling out kind of governance changes over time. They kind of provide strategic recommendations, and they're building a roadmap themselves for, again, continuing to develop the rewards and the coverage of IoT and mobile. And so they're working on that. I think from the foundation side, we're continuing to work on our roadmap is mostly driving demand. We want to drive usage of the network, and we want to drive the usage of the network that's small businesses or, small deployments of sensors, kind of the on the ground, boots on the ground use case that you might not have thought of, but hey, here's a Helium Foundation. We have some funding. We'd love to fund you, or we'd love to help you build out your use case, like work with us. And we want to help you do that. That's our full roadmap probably for the next couple of years. But yeah, we are driving demand side, and that's what we're mostly focused on.
That's awesome. So I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking, and again, you're dangerously close to that million hotspots. My question is that you've got it's saying only about half of them are online.
Mm-hmm.
Is that certification process, because these are FCC regulated? That even when they're installed, they still take some time to come online?
No, the FCC part is for the 5G side. So I believe that all 5G hotspots that are up should be online, but I haven't checked the Explorer, so keep me honest. But no, the hotspots that are offline on the IoT network are offline. So that's someone who has turned them off, or they've left the network in some way. But yeah, that is right, that there's about half online today.
Gotcha. Yeah,
we hope that doesn't mean that they're not, back online soon, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are rolling out at hundreds a day that are coming online. I mean, you're right. You're very transparent. You're showcasing when things are coming online, where activity is, who paid what fees. Again, really great dashboard, because you have to educate your clients. You have to educate your users and your operators. And so I think it's amazing that you're, again, just being this prolific in this. And I'm impressed. Again, it's United States is a big chunk of your business, but then, Germany, Canada, UK, and other ones, like you really are global right after there. And they're all relatively even outside of the States.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Valerie, I'm so impressed with everything that Helium does. And the reason why I really like it is because this is one of, whether it's the long range, whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's 5G, like wireless is one of those, like, it's like water, like, especially for the next upcoming generation, like they have to have connectivity at all times. And I like the fact that we're not beholden to the mega telecoms, that there is an alternative, and not only is there an alternative, but it's great for young, small entrepreneurs to run, 1 node, 10 nodes, 1,000 nodes, that it suddenly becomes, a small business that people can do with very little, capital to start off with. That all being said, kind of where do you see the space evolving? I mean, there's a lot of competition in the wireless space. There's a lot of new innovations coming. Kind of how do you see this playing out over the next few years?
Yeah, I think that's what we're most excited about too, is that people are building businesses on the network, and that Helium can provide such a low cost way to do sensor deployments and build IoT solutions, that hopefully we've lowered the barriers of entry so significantly enough that I mean, I would like to see, university students like building sensors and deploying them to the network and actually being able to, scale a business from that. So I think that's what we're the most excited about is the accessibility that Helium brings for innovation. So where do we see this going altogether? I mean, we still see the IoT network, and I still see the IoT industry just like booming. I think like years ago, we had this like really big push around smart city infrastructure and like smart city solutions and how kind of awesome and, transformational that would be. And that, I remember reading something that it was like, one day you'll wake up and you'll just like look at your phone and you'll be able to see, the whole flow of traffic and, get into some shower that, scans your body and, shows you any medical things and sends that right to your doctor and whatnot. Like that sort of like, smart lifestyle thing I think is still to come. And I'm really excited to see that flow out. And I hope that folks continue to find the Helium LoRaWAN network because it is the largest public LoRaWAN network in the globe. I hope that they find that and they're able to access that. And we just keep driving the growth of the IoT industry. Helium just attended LoRaWAN Live in Orlando last week. The LoRaWAN industry is super excited about Helium. Again, it's the largest deployment of a LoRaWAN network in the world, and I think alone Helium has like driven that growth. Probably more than anything. So
listen, you guys are one of the bright spots in the cryptocurrency Web3 market industry. Even though you're not a crypto play per se, you're an infrastructure play, but you're utilizing blockchain in a very new and novel way, and really showcasing how smart contracts and payments can be made for microtransactions of things that exist. Someone could put something in place, and money's just or tokens will just be deposited over years and years as long as it's online and people are using it. And I think that's really what a lot of people want, is that you don't need that permissioned deal. No one has to come to you and say, can I be a provider?
Mm-hmm.
You're more, is it the right location, and do you have the right equipment? And there you go.
Exactly. You opt in. Yeah.
That's fabulous. So if people do want to do more of this, for anyone watching right now, this goes, yep, I've got a bunch of buildings. I'm in a rural area, or, hey, I love the concept and I want to roll it out. What's the best way for them to get involved and get a hold of hardware and some support?
Yeah, so you can go to helium.com and you can find sort of any of the certified manufacturers that sell LoRaWAN hotspots that run on the Helium network, or sell, I think, 5G radios that run on the Helium network. So go to helium.com and you can find information there. You can also get involved with us by just joining the community Discord. That is like where the community lives. That's where governance lives. That's where we want you to kind of interact with us and ask questions and, build use cases and all of that good stuff. So you can find us also, you can find that at helium.foundation. That's also the foundation website. Again, you can learn more about us. You can access grants there. We have sort of a rolling grants program that we have sort of different themes on each month, or every couple of months we have sort of a different theme for grants. But yeah, helium.foundation or helium.com is definitely the two places to look. Join our Discord, and then also, please follow us on socials. We're Helium on Twitter, and then Helium FNDN on Twitter as well.
That's fabulous. And I'm on your website now looking at the different brands you carry, and I do recognize a number of these companies. So I'm 100%, like I said, now it looks like there's a variety of ways to get them compared to last year when I tried. 100% going to order one. We'll plug it in and play with it. So Valerie, thank you so much for your time today. Really excited for the mission that Helium Network is doing, Foundation is doing. And for yWhales, this is Helium, and we'll catch you guys next time. Be good.